Alright, hello. So this is the behind the scenes, or sort of making of automation. So this is where the project first started. It was in a Premiere. I started work on this like like a few hours after the song got released from King Gizzard. And I was like, oh crap, I better get on this. I want to do something cool. And originally I was just sort of piecing together the videos that they had released to the public. It wasn't until like a day later that I decided to instead sort of bring my camera out and start filming and make a little story behind it, or at least put a theme. And that is why I have all these shots over here. I was just going for a generic automation theme, like with factories and like industry and stuff. And then I just scouted like a bunch of locations. If I open up Google Earth here, these are all different locations that I looked at in Google Earth and thought like, oh, okay, that kind of fits the theme. This is Springfield, Oregon, in the United States of America, and these are just like sort of just generic factories or mills or whatever that I just thought would look cool to fit the theme, because I didn't really know that there was like a connection with the altered future story of King Gizzard, or from King Gizzard. So I was just going for just generic automation. This is Novatails, or officially it is actually just International Paper. This is where they make paper. This building has been a little bit significant to me basically my whole life, because it's like the tallest building in Springfield. I just decided I'll just sort of just make it a part of my video. Why not? And I think it looks really cool too. After recording all that footage that you see on the left here, and then some more a few days later, I just started piecing stuff together, and eventually I was planning stuff to do in Blender, and you'll see those later on in the video. If I go back here, just a neat little thing I wanted to show. So this was actually motion tracked. Like I wanted the camera to be motion tracked so it could still look like it was being handheld, and it kind of does, but I think it was a bit too much effort just for this one shot. Because I spent like 2 days learning how to motion capture in Blender. But now I know how to do it, so there's that, I guess. This is what the thing originally looked like, and then I used motion tracking in Blender to get this shot looking a lot better. I actually used After Effects just for that one, but then it didn't know how to track, so I just used Blender instead. So that helped there as well, learning how to motion capture. This was done in After Effects. This was originally just an end center lane sign on the road that was actually like about 2 miles away. Or was it? Hey Stu. God, the amount of times I've like been editing this and just accidentally freeze framed on some weird faces is uncountable. It was actually where I found this one shot. Yeah, this one right here that gets heavily distorted in the final render. This was found by complete accident. Alright, so the KG filter that supplied like throughout the whole video wasn't always looking like this. So before the KG filter was finalized, this wasn't downscaled. It was actually just the full resolution, 1080p, yada yada yada. And all I was doing was just doing brightness and contrast, finding edges, and then I just did a color effect which basically just tinted everything from black to white. Like it made it black and white, and then it changed that to blue and yellow. Blue being dark and yellow being bright. If I can pull up some clips here, you can see it's just blue and yellow, and it looks kind of dull because it's just blue and yellow, and then there's just a kind of ugly gradient in between. What ended up fixing that was I rewatched Robot Stop's music video by Jason, and there was like this sort of pixelated effect that just looked awesome, and I really wanted to recreate it, so I searched around and tried to figure out what that was, and it's called pixel dithering. It's the same sort of thing that GIFs use when they can only use so much colors without getting a huge file size. So Robot Stop will use 1-bit dithering, which is just either off or on, no in between, and you can't really make out a lot of detail out of that. So instead what I did was I just did 2-bit, which means there are now like 4 different colors. There's off, on, and then there's a little bit of off, and then a little bit of on, sort of like, you know, in between, evenly divided. And that's what this pixel dithering does without the fine edges. And then when I combined it with fine edges and the contrast, it just looked like a mix of both Some of Us and Robot Stop, as well as the KG album cover. And I thought that was really awesome. And then finally, I tried to figure out how to do some color correction, but I didn't even really need to do like fancy color correction. All I had to do was just open up a Colorama effect, and it would basically just map brightness to any color you like. Wait, this isn't the right band. It just maps it from dark blue to yellow with a bit of green in between, and it looks really good, I think. Sort of had a eureka moment when I was fiddling around with this and I kind of accidentally came upon it. Oh, that looks good! Bruh! There's one more effect that I use in this video. Oh yeah, so this effect where the palette is just sort of changing every single frame. I call this Psych, I guess, because it's sort of psychedelic. So you can see in this color palette, it uses only 4 colors. I think it only uses like every 45-degree angle. Like here's color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4, which is why you don't see pure yellow. But if you cycle this around, let's have Joe screaming. So if I shift the phase here, that means that the colors are looking up like what's here, what's here, what's here, what's here, just for 4 brightness values. But by using phase shift, I can rotate those clockwise around the color wheel. But then, if you have this color right here, go over here, there's eventually a point where it just gets a sharp transition to dark blue. And that's what you see sometimes. And it does some pretty freaky stuff. Probably like one of my favorite shots of this whole video is just this psychedelic stew just sort of splitting off in 3 ways. I kind of wish I made the video look more like this, but anyway, instead of having a sharp transition here, I instead just introduced a soft transition, so that way it's all a smooth wheel and there aren't any sharp color changes. And then lastly, a phase shift. It just gets animated, and it just gets like spun around as time goes on. But yeah, it just cycles around this color wheel, basically. That's what I do for the palette changing. And some of these effects were like where the screen flashes. All I really do is just invert the find edges filter, because if I turn all of these off, this is what find edges looks like on its own. And then if it's inverted, then it looks like that. And you could change like how much of a composite you want to do with the original. Sometimes it's changing too, like the find edges composite value or the mix with the original value, that can get animated too. Like here you see like there's barely any edges, but then as the shot goes on, they get a lot more pronounced. And some of this here, this is just me using the color palette and cycling it around, but still leaving that sort of sharp transition in the middle, and it can do some really wacky things. And this finale shot, it's double the resolution than the other ones. So everything else that you see in this video is basically downscaled to 320 by 180 pixels. That way the pixel dithering is actually noticeable. The pixels are big enough, and then I just scale them back up using scale, and then just turning off aliasing. Anyway, the finale shot is double the resolution just because there's just some details that I don't want to be left out in the final product. Yeah, that's pretty much what I did for all these shots. Just a mix of all that stuff. Alright, this is going to be behind the scenes for the solid state drive factory. They're not really solid state drives. I didn't really put much thought into the design. And then the label on here, I know that's not what like cases of actual solid-state drives look like. In fact, they don't even look like an SD card. So yeah, it was just a sort of just get the point across, especially with the KG filter that's applied to the entire video, which makes it hard to read like anything. Let me just go ahead and actually go behind the scenes. So with the lights off, this hallway doesn't go out that far, and this plane is just, well, it's just a plane, I guess. The lights just stop here. So it looks like the conveyor belt just comes from nothing. It's kind of ambiguous as to where all these drives came from. But the idea that I was trying to get across is that these drives are sort of coming through with a plate of copper on them, and then this giant stamper sort of thing comes down, and then it just erases like some of the copper on there, so it makes a sort of circuit negative on the drive. Then these robot arms, which I tried to IK rig, but they didn't end up looking too good. They were all jittery. I guess that's what I get for trying to IK rig in Blender. I kind of put like a little bit of effort into this, since I've already designed like a PCB in the past. I just decided, well, hey, like one of these has got to be ground. I don't remember which one. Oh yeah, this one was grounded here, the far right one. So yeah, there was definitely like a thought or two put into, you know, the circuitry on that. I'm a textbook overthinker. And then over here is like the drives just getting put through an oven, so that way they could just be soldered to the PCB. And then over here I was originally going to have some sort of a robot putting all of these into boxes and just keeping up with the throughput of the factory, but then I just decided to have a separate scene. Alright, this is the shipping scene where an automated forklift kind of pushes in a stack of boxes. Originally, I had made these boxes to have drives like inside them, but yeah, I like rigged this whole thing, or I rigged a box just to open up and even get those drives placed inside in the last scene that I showed, but I could never really think it through about how it would look. But yeah, I modeled this semi-trailer after, you know, an American semi-trailer. I don't know if they look the same or different in Europe or other parts of the world, but this is solely American because the facility was shot in America. But yeah, if I go behind the scenes now, it's just another flat plane with a black sky, and all the light just comes from these four and then the two lights here at the bottom. And I didn't really model the front of the semi because, you know, you don't see it. There are some things in this entire project that like were modeled and like thought through, but they never really were conveyed in the final video. You're gonna see a little bit of that here and there. Anyway, I'll move on to the next clip. Alright, so this is the node building room. I like to call these computer towers nodes because they're not really, I don't really think they would be considered computers in this universe. I even like put this warning on here saying like, oh yeah, if you like mess with this, you'll be tried for murder, because that's basically what you would be doing if you messed with anything in this. Everything moves. Oh, that doesn't. That definitely moves. If I go into pose mode, here we go. Yeah, the door opens. And if you're probably wondering what this QR code is, this QR code will actually just redirect back to this video that you're watching, because I originally wanted this behind the scenes video to be sort of Easter egg and unlisted. So if you like scan this QR code, then you would go to this video and you would just be presented with a little surprise. But as soon as I applied the filter to the video, it just decimated the quality of the QR code. I just left it in just because it looks like a sort of identifier for robots to use when they're working with this thing. And then, oh my god, this is one of my favorite parts to work on in this whole project, was the serial number generator. I'll say it right now, this means nothing. It is actually just purely random. So I have a low LOD version that's used in the final shot, the finale, and then I have this one which is rigged and like has a door and everything. If I can open the door. Just like Nonagon Infinity. Ha, easy joke. But anyway, this serial number generator was really interesting to work with. It took me just like a few hours to do, and it was my first time using the material shader node thing, this dialogue here at the bottom. I have to give credit to CG Matter for making that Sudoku puzzle generator. That really kind of made me understand how to like translate stuff in a texture, if that makes sense. This basically just takes in the color, and if it is pure white, then it'll just generate just a random serial number every time a new one is made. So, well, I mean, this one, I don't know why it does that. Just generate a whole bunch, and then just shuffles this stuff around a little bit. It's really complicated. I do not have the speaking capability of explaining how this all works. I'll probably put out the blend file. If it's not in the description, then sorry, I didn't feel like it. But if it's in there, then hey, you can download it and look at all this yourself, instead of having me explain it to you. A problem that I had when I was sort of planning out the shots was, what if I'm in the finale shot, and then there's going to be a bunch of other nodes, and they're all going to have these serial numbers, but in the story that we're filming here, we're just sort of tracking this one node, so we want to have it have the same serial number throughout the whole video. The way it did that was, it takes in the color, and if it's not white, then it'll actually change the random seed to the color that you're using. And then cyan was what I used to get this. But yeah, that solved the problem. So yeah, and then this robot, like, I just wanted to go for just a robot that I just wanted to design myself. I just kind of kept it simple, and it was going to be something that just rolls on a sort of track, pretty much just like how Wheatley does in Portal 2. I even jumped into Portal 2 really quick and just got up close and personal with how his sort of rail system worked, and took a little bit of inspiration from that. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is. Anyway, this is what the outside looks like. It's just, Next. Alright, and this is the next room. This is where the robot puts the node onto the port over here and then sort of uploads something to it. And I wanted to have one shot where the camera is like following this cable, but I didn't really think it would really fit anywhere in the video, so I just scrapped that idea. This whole shot is actually one continuous video file, kind of split up manually in After Effects. And the video on here on the screen is actually also just a video file rendered in After Effects. And it took a little bit to get the timing right on it. This chair model is not mine. The only thing that I got from the public domain was this chair model. And I wanted to add a bit of atmosphere to this room. Like, I added a little vent since humans were in this room at one point, but as you can see, they're not really here anymore. And then you can't really see it, but there are actually like 4 cables coming out the back of these ports. You can sort of see it in one of the shots when it does the dolly zoom on this node right here. Since this node over here is missing, you can kind of see the cables back there. And that's one of the details that I put a lot of thought into, but ultimately it never really saw the light of day, other than that little minuscule glimpse right here. It felt a bit weird making this sign big, because, you don't want to just like make the story super obvious to the people who are watching the music video, but then I kind of countered myself with the fact that like anyone who's walking in this room, this has got to be the first thing they see, because it's posted right here. If you do anything, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble. I learned how to use Bezier curves. I sort of, you just make the robot move along it. It's pretty simple stuff. And the robot actually is IK rigged. I forgot to mention that. This hallway to the left and right, they don't go anywhere because you don't see down there. That is that shot. Alright, so this isn't exactly the last shot. I forgot that there was one point where I had to make this very minimal. That way the render time wouldn't be absolutely horrendous and dreadful. Then, oh yeah, this is an alternate shot that I tried to do. But I wanted to get the front of the robot in shot as well as the serial number on there, just to show off the fact that I actually am keeping continuity. I didn't really add a shot where he was actually putting this on there, because I don't think that would really fit in the momentum of the video. Then lastly, here is the facility. Oh god, I have material mode turned on. Oh god. It's gonna load everything now. Okay. Uh-oh. Whoops. Okay, I'm just not going to look over there. So this is actually supposed to be the interior of the tower that you see zoomed in on a bunch of times. I tried to match these up a little bit with the actual building. I have no clue what goes on inside that building, so I just kind of let my imagination go wild. And then these tubes are the same tubes that kind of go down outside into this sort of building. I was intending for them to be sort of like cooling ducts, where cool air that gets pumped in from up here goes all the way down here just to get blown up through the atrium and then get vented out here, because if all of these nodes are running like humans, then it's going to get really hot in this place. So you gotta have really good ventilation, and this probably isn't even ideal ventilation. But this shot was planned as soon as I wanted to have like a story for the music video. I just wanted to pan out from a single monitor, then reveal more screens, and then more and more and more. And then you find that there's like a huge ocean of all of these screens with people inside them. After I had come up with that, like a day later, I saw somebody's like sketches of their own music video that they were planning, and they were sort of showing a similar thing. And I thought that was kind of neat, like both of us had come up with the same thing. It actually was coincidental. But yeah, I'll put a link to that in the description. It's on Reddit. So this camera, originally I was using the timeline and stuff just to edit stuff in the camera, but it didn't really look natural. So instead what I found out is that you can use a path in Blender to sort of move the camera along and sort of dolly it down the atrium. And you can actually do that really smoothly. There's a variable that you can change on this camera that lets you tell it where on that path it's supposed to be in regards of like a percentage, like, oh, you're 50% of the way to the bottom, or you're 12% of the way to the bottom. That's how it kind of works, so that's what it does. It just zooms back, then it dives down the atrium, and then it just starts picking up speed. And then down here at the bottom, you sort of get into this forced perspective TV, and this actually had a lot more monitors. The robot here is also on a Bezier path from like just in the last shot that I showed, except like there's only one path here, and then the rest of these, like the tracks, are baked meshes. Like the mesh data is just finalized to fit on the track, and you can't change the track to change the mesh anymore. Then I put the mesh inside a collection, then instanced that collection over and over again. That way it can save on memory and file size for the project. Alright, so here are some of my notes that I used for this project. There aren't very many, but this first one is just sort of the layout of where every shot should be going in the music video. Like the green here is like vocals and stuff, and this is just visualizing like where all of the shots are supposed to be in the final render. Here's that, and then I kind of did a little bit of a screenplay sort of thing, but I didn't really commit to it. Like this is the assembly line scene up here, and then down here is the shipping, and then there's this incomplete one that I didn't even draw on. Don't know why. And this is one more thing that I kind of sketched out back when I was working on the models for things. Like this is before the semi-trailer was even finished, and even the node like wasn't really thought out yet. It was even supposed to have like a motherboard sort of thing inside there, but it didn't really get shown. There was no reason to make one because you didn't really see in there anyway. I added 2 more fans here. I don't think I have anything on the back. Nope. That's my notes. So this is pretty much the end of the video. I'd just like to thank you for watching the whole thing. I had a real fun month building this project from the ground up, all while learning how to use Blender. And if you enjoyed the music video, then that makes me happy. That's why I made it. And now here's an unedited version of it. Enjoy.
JavaScript person, digital lens. Tell all your friends that you know that what you want. Automation. 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 Automation.
More like, yeah, on that side.